Dr. Hani, what sparked your curiosity for pre-Arabic languages?
You mean pre-Arabic?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I attended the university in 1983, I started studying Arabic studies. Well, I attended courses in the Arabic morphology, syntax, and I found out that most of the linguistic phenomena couldn't be explained by by the normal methodology which we follow in Arabic studies, usually the traditional Arabic studies. Which in fact in the future, after I got my BA in Arabistic at Yarmouk University in 1987, I attended a master program in epigraphy. Epigraphy is the study of ancient inscriptions in general, and whether it's they are incised on rock or cast in metal or on wood. There are many surfaces. We can talk about many surfaces where ancient inscriptions are written. And in fact, this study, studying epigraphy at Yarmouk University, at the Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology, paved my way to understand more about the prehistory. History of Arabic, in fact, in general, and also it gives me the opportunity to discover more about the cultural history of the Arabian Peninsula before Islam, because through the inscriptions we discover usually facts related to the religious beliefs in Arabia, as well as historical facts that are not attested in the Arabic sources or in the Arabic tradition. What I mean that studying Arabic and Arabic culture in general would not yield to useful conclusions without studying the ancient Arabian languages in general. Every student who who would like to study Arabic and Arabian culture should start, maybe from the 10th century BC to have, a wide understanding and a deep understanding about the Arabian Peninsula and its history, its religions and languages. Yeah.
And you started studying that. Was it a new study? Was it like that? Were you the first, or were you one of the first to do that?
Yes, in fact, my group, in fact, in 1987, were the second group which attended the MA in epigraphy at the Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology, and we are now more than 30 professors spread over Jordan and worldwide. And this gave us, of course, an impulse to work on further to discover our cultural heritage. Our linguistic and cultural heritage in general. In fact, I'm at Yarmouk University now, where I studied before. But my stay in Germany, in fact, I invested my stay in Germany to go in depth in this study, and I tried my best through German language to discover more and more about the Arabian culture and the Arabian cultural history, in addition to Levantine and also the Horn of Africa. I'm also interested in the relationship between the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa, in addition to a wide historical spectrum covered by my study either through during my MA period and PhD period in Germany.
And in that German period, you discovered, or you discovered it probably before, but what I like in your German period, what you describe, is how you somehow through language learning the German language, discovered more and more of the German soul, the German culture, the German.
Yeah, of course. I mean, okay, learning German was of great importance for me. It paved the way to understand literature written in German in general. And as you know, German or any language you learn, it is a kind of a key. It's a key to the culture itself. Not only to literature but also to the people. I mean, if you understand the language, if you can deal with the language, it means that you can discover the culture as well. Yeah.
And German is, of course, a living language. It's a language that's been spoken by lots of people in Germany and abroad.
Yeah.
You went on in studying languages that are pre-Islamic.
Yes, in fact. Yes. If you know the system of a certain language, then it will be easy for you to learn other languages. I mean, I talk now about the the grammar of a language. I'm not talking about the script, And yes, I had the background how to deal with languages in general. That was for me. That's why it was for me maybe easy to learn German. And also to deal with it and to write a lot of articles and publications in German. Yeah.
But when you say once you know how the key, you have easy access to the keys of languages and of inscriptions. So
yes.
By having those keys, but your generation is one of the first, maybe that really this.
I mean, if I say generation, I mean the generation in Jordan. I mean, but I mean Europeans, took care about this 100, 200 years ago. Since 200 years, I mean, it's not. We are not the first in this field, and studying the ancient Arabian. Culture and either in Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, or in the Levant. The Europeans were pioneers in this regard, I have to say. And some, of course, and also they contributed in deciphering the ancient inscriptions. And my generation, which studied abroad. Got the same experience and the same information they gained. The Europeans has gained before, and of course, on a daily. There are inscriptions are discovered constantly, and some of them are still undeciphered. But we have, of course, inscriptions and languages that we understand, and we can deal with the text and draw conclusions from the text, either on the linguistic, cultural, or any other level.
But I can imagine that's such a beautiful thing that you discover through inscriptions, through understanding languages, that you're discovering former cultures and yes. Former.
Yes, in fact, inscriptions are repositories of ancient history. Of course, if you discover an inscription, it means that you can understand a lot about the environment or the locality where the inscription is found. In certain cases, you can date the site, an archaeological site, through the inscription. Not only pottery, but also other inscriptional material can help us in dating archaeological sites. And we have now, if the inscription is dated, for example, then now you have a fixed date of a certain site. But sometimes the paleography, the way you write inscriptions, it also gives you indications about it gives you a little bit some information about dating the site, but not in exact details. Yeah, if you discover an inscription which is new and you are the first one who read it and understand it, and then you convey to the humanity a new experience and new information that are, in my opinion, of great importance to understand the human creativity.
Mm-hmm. And when you discover such a, when you decipher such an inscription, and what does that do for? It opens a window to a culture that was once here. And
yeah, of course. I mean, you understand as soon as you discover and decipher an inscription and understand it. Of course, it opens a window to a lot of historical facts and cultural historical facts about the region where it is discovered. Yeah.
And when you say that you are, or your generation, is one of the first from Jordan,
yes,
or from the Arabian Peninsula, investigating or doing scientific research on these inscriptions, and what does that mean, that you are the first from this region to do that? What does that say of?
Well, in fact, it means a lot. It means that we have now a generation from, from Jordan, I mean, from the area, from the region in general, which can deal with its cultural heritage and understand it, and understand it in, in the same historical and geographical context. If I talk about, Europeans, they contributed in the deciphering the inscriptions, they contributed in understanding the inscriptions, but sometimes, some of them, they lack the cultural background, I mean, I have to say that frankly. I mean, some of them, they lack the cultural background. Therefore, I mean, their understanding of the entire story is a little bit vague, but of course, I mean, now, in fact, we are not working alone here. We are working also with our European colleagues in Europe, mainly in Europe and the United States and other countries, and we exchange opinions about certain issues in this regard. I mean, and after that we reach a conclusion.
But you bring in some extra layer, because, or a very important layer, because you are from this.
Yes, from the same region. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, but I have to say that my European colleagues also help in different regards now, in different perspectives. I mean, we conduct joint surveys. We conduct also joint studies together. I think it's important not from the scientific perspective, but also from the cultural perspective, because it's important to get in contact with our European colleagues, and I mean, not only Europeans, but outside Jordan. I mean, our colleagues from outside Jordan, to have exchange. Which means that we can do more for cultural understanding as well.
Yeah, but when you say that as you're born here, you're raised here, you're part of this culture, and you are one of the first working in this field and understanding those languages, that makes you that I can imagine that's a very special role you have. A very important role, but a very special role.
Yes, I personally can't evaluate myself and whether I have a special role or not. It's the academic world which should decide this. I mean, I'm not the one who decides that, because I can't.
No, but what you do is you shed light on times that people here seems before not know much about, at least. How do you see that?
This is true. Yeah, this is true, and I mean, well, some generations. I mean, what I want to say that to be broad-minded and to accept the opinion of others is crucial to understand and to exchange. To exchange ideas and to also to reach reliable conclusions. I think that who would like to study this the culture in general should have a broad knowledge about a lot of things, you know, not only history, not only languages, but also ancient history and also modern history and ancient cultures and modern culture. I mean, they are not separatable. We cannot separate them because, I mean, the Nabateans who lived in this area for a long time, I think, I mean, they existed after that. I mean, what I'm talking about is the change of political entities, but the people are the same. The people are the same, and they also you know, continue to live in this area, in this region. And I think we have to take into consideration, I mean, a lot of perspectives towards studying a certain topic or a certain subject in our cultural history in general. It is, I mean, studying the past is connected with, I mean, with our living heritage. We cannot separate them.
But the fact that you shed light on the times that before people here wouldn't know much about, because it was not.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why is it that you are one of the first to do just that?
No, I have some colleagues who are older than me and did that, of course, but I think it's important to have a generation here which is interested in its cultural heritage and cultural history.
And what I want to say is, by being one of the first Jordanian professor now, but one of the scientists researching and investigating inscriptions and languages and shedding light on a time that somehow is not known about. Why is it that those times? What makes it that those times were not seen, or not accepted, or not embraced by before?
Yes, because you know, I mean, if I take the Arabian Peninsula, I mean, as an example, the Arabic sources, for example, that wrote about the Arabian, they were concerned with the Arabian Peninsula and its history, they didn't get, in fact, the access to ancient sources, because at that time they couldn't, they hadn't the instruments that you know, give them the access, for example, to ancient South Arabian epigraphy or ancient North Arabian epigraphy or Nabatean epigraphy. I mean, we are talking about 200 years old discipline. I mean, not that ancient. You know, it's not that old. Yeah. And we can expect that such Arabic sources do not cover the entire, I mean, they cover maybe 200 years before Islam, for example, but they don't go deeper into history, because the composer and the authors didn't have the access to such an epigraphical source. Yeah.
And
that's why it's important to take into consideration the archaeological sources and epigraphical sources, as well as maybe oral history as well. It's also important. I mean, oral history is important to understand ancient cultures, because the same people are still living. I mean, the same people who you know, established ancient cultures. I mean, their descendants are still there. You know, yeah. That's why I feel it's important to study the Arabian Peninsula in a holistic approach, where we can take into consideration the epigraphical sources, the archaeology, in addition also to living heritage.
But when you say before the ancient pre-Islamic cultures were not really part of the Arabic storytelling, of the Arabic history, Um, that's now changing then, I suspect, because you bring them the stories of those days.
Yes, yeah, this is now we have a new window to ancient history of the Arabian Peninsula. This is a new one. This new window was not possible to open without studying, deciphering inscriptions, deciphering the ancient Arabian and Semitic inscriptions in general. Yeah.
And what does this window? Because I suppose much of the students you get, they are taught in a way that they don't understand those times before.
Yes.
How do they say? How do they see that era when they come in your faculty?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, students who come to our faculty, they have their own, stereotype ideas about Arabia or about the Semitic cultures in general. But when they get deeply involved in this field, they start changing their understanding and also their methodology towards studying the cultural history of the Semitic world.
But what is their view when they come in? How do they see it then when they don't have this knowledge? Is it a kind of ignorant times? Or
in fact, most of our students who are coming to Yani, they in fact they are selected, because they know. They know in prayer what are they going to do, and because they have a little bit, a little knowledge about this and about ancient, the cultural history of Arabia and the Semitic world in general. But at the Institute, we train them and we conduct surveys so that they understand what we are doing in a better way. Yeah.
But what is I suppose the view that they have, or the people from Jordan and from the Arabian Peninsula, how do they see in general the times before Islam?
Well, in fact, the Arabian Peninsula was a they had a flourishing civilization in Arabia before Islam. And the word Jahiliyyah, or the ignorance period, I think it's not the right word to use in this context. Because, ignorance, it means that the people who were living there were ignorant and they were not in contact with civilization, etc. But this is, in fact, a little bit, the idea should be modified a little bit. In fact, Arabia witnessed a flourishing culture. Economically and historically and culturally in general. And it's our role now to present this culture, which was hidden in the inscriptions, in fact.
That's your role.
Yeah.
Present.
Yeah.
That's your role.
To present the contents of this ancient heritage to be absorbed by the young generation, because it's part of their identity, it's part of their history, and I think it's our role now to make them aware that Arabia is not, maybe Jahiliyyah in terms of the religious perspective, but from the civilized perspective, Arabia, I think, especially the southern parts and the central parts, they are of great importance and significance for to understand okay,
no problem.
I think the sources give us new glimpses. The ancient sources, the ancient inscriptions give us new glimpses on the hidden history and the hidden culture of Arabia before Islam. And this is, now evident. Evident through, research and through archaeological surveys and through also studies published. We have thousands of publications in this regard. But most of them, in fact, are written in foreign languages. That's why they are not accessible by Arab people. Yeah, and it's our role now to, not to translate this huge literature, but also to present the cultural history of Arabia in Arabic, for example. I think this is important now, so that Arab people can have access to this source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you have you studied several languages, you can lay connections. So you create a world that had been here, that before was not understood by people.
You mean the scholarly world or what?
No, both. You're putting a light on times that for most people was not known yet. So people understand now that, for example, here in Petra, that this is the culture of what it stands for.
Yes, of course, but I have to say that I'm not the first one in this regard,
No,
of course.
not.
But understanding. If you talk about epigraphy or the ancient languages, yes, of course, as I said in the beginning, they are in fact the key to cultures. And Nabatean inscriptions are written in Nabatean language, in Nabatean script. And if you decipher the script, then you understand the language, and you understand after that the contents of a certain inscription. And from this inscription, you can extract and draw conclusions regarding religious history, regarding commercial issues, regarding social relations among people at that time. Yeah. Through this knowledge, you can nurture the history of this region, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you see then also that there are connections between the pre-Arabic world and the Arab world that somehow, do you see connections that before had not been seen?
Between the pre-Arab?
Pre-Islamic world and the Islamic world.
Yeah. Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, because people continue to exist in Arabia. And of course they got with them, ancient traditions that continued until nowadays. Yeah.
Do you have examples of that?
Well, let us say something. In some ancient South Arabian inscriptions from Yemen, from present Yemen, in fact, we rely on Yemenite dialects to understand ancient inscriptions. Because some words that occur in ancient South Arabian inscriptions, they are still used in Yemen. And this is a fact, And also some rituals that existed, that we know from the inscriptions, are still existing until nowadays, in Yemen. And which means that this culture continued to exist, a part of political changes, a part of economic changes, but people preserved this cultural heritage and continued to transmit it. Yeah.
Is that also with the camel burial, or is that another?
No, it's something different.
That's something different. Okay, sorry for that.
It's something different. The camel burial inscription is it's from Wadi Rum, but this is an evidence about resurrection, okay, and that people in Arabia used to bury their camels with them. So that
this camera has stopped.
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we should stop.
Where did your passion for languages and inscriptions start?
Well, in fact, this passion started after my, during my BA studies in Jordan at Yarmouk University. I tried my best to understand the Arabian culture in more deep and with a more depth, but I didn't find my I didn't find this in during my BA studies, as because we were studying Arabic and Arabistic in general in a traditional way, studying the languages in not in a diachronic way, but in synchronic way. And I started looking for programs that could help me in deciphering the ancient history of Arabic in general and the ancient history of the Arabian culture. That was after 1987 when I attended a master program at the Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology, where I studied epigraphy and I finished my MA in epigraphy. And my master thesis was concerned with the relationship, the lexical relationship between Arabic and Ugaritic. Ugaritic is one of the late Bronze Age languages that existed on the Mediterranean Sea. And I tried to find the lexical affinities between Arabic, some scholars call it classical Arabic or standard Arabic. There are different terminology. I mean here the Arabic of Quran and the pre-Islamic Arabian poetry. I found out that there are a lot of aspects that constitute a kind of lexical similarity between Ugaritic and Arabic. Yes, because this could be, of course, explained because both languages they have the same mother language, which we call it, it's a hypothetical language, we call it Proto-Semitic. And this lexical stock could be, from this from this genetic relationship, but it could be also, this relationship could be also through historical factors. By migrations, by historical contacts, commercial contacts, etc. But we have a lot of historical models to explain this similarity. But in general, most of the languages in the Levant and Arabia, and also in Mesopotamia, they are interconnected, and we call them sister languages because they come from the same origin. The origin, we call it Proto-Semitic.
But when I want to go back, what is your fascination for those old languages?
Yes, because I found, in general, I found the languages, studying the languages provide us with the right instruments to decipher cultures. For example, I did for 5 years ancient Ethiopic, old Ethiopic language. Because my professor in Berlin, Professor Rainer Vogt, was, he is a renowned professor in this field. And I did with him 5 years studying, ancient Ethiopic or old Ethiopic. And why? Because I wanted to understand the relationship between Arabia and the Horn of Africa. Studying the language would explain a lot of historical facts and historical phenomena in terms of relationship between Arabia and the Horn of Africa. This is an example. Yes, and as I said to you, because I was interested in exploring the history of Arabic language and the Arabic culture in general.
But where did it, even before your studies, where did this fascination for languages and for this, where did it start?
I was, in fact, in general, I was interested in languages even during my childhood, and also in my. That's why I was interested in English. From the beginning, although I was studying Arabic, and because I found out that studying a certain language would open and pave the way for me to get deep information about certain aspects of our cultural history. I mean, from the beginning, I was interested in languages, but I can't say how this evolved at the beginning. Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But when you were really young, I mean, when you were 10 or 11, how did it show? How, what was the fascination then?
Fascination in languages?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't remember it. I mean, I can't make a synthesis in this regard. Yeah,
But did you want to discover the world, understand the world? Did you want to be a Jules Verne or a...
I don't know. I can say that we had no internet at that time. TV also was not accessible at that time because I was born in a village where electricity didn't exist at that time until the 1982, in fact, we had a radio, and that was our window to the world, and of course, I heard a lot of languages in the radio. I mean, I found out later that this is German, this is French. At that time I couldn't, differentiate between German, French, or Dutch, or Swedish, or Russian. But this. I mean, when I started to hear. I mean, there were voices, only voices, for me, and but there are certain points where the pronunciation is different from differs from each other, well, maybe this is one of the reasons why I was interested. I mean, was interested in languages.
Because how did you listen then to the radio? You were like. Can you describe? It was in the living room, or how did you know that you could find different languages?
Yeah, I can tell you. Yeah, I mean, it was in the living room, of course. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I don't understand your question.
No, yeah. How do you? It's a radio. You go. You hear those languages. How did you do that? Were you scrolling through the channels? Were you?
Yes, scrolling through the channels and trying to even within the Arabic sphere, and I try to we have many dialects here in the Arab world, and it was for me at the beginning difficult to understand, for example, the Algerian or the Moroccan dialect, and this is one this is one example why I tried to study. I tried to have the right instruments to study languages, because the Arabic dialects, they could be considered as languages, because sometimes they have different morphology and different syntax, and this made me also enthusiastic to pursue studying languages. In fact, I can't classify the factors why I was interested in languages from the beginning. I don't know. I have no personal synthesis about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You are from a family that's also scientific interested, or what?
Yes, in fact, my family. In fact, they were interested in. I mean, my father is a businessman, and my family in general, they used to earn money through business. And it was my uncle, in fact, my elder uncle, who supported me and opened my eye to the academic world, because he is considered one of the first graduates from the Jordan University. Yeah, and in fact, he supported my career, my studies, and also opened my eyes towards the world, because he got in contact with people in Amman and the capital city, and also worldwide. That's why he wanted me to to deviate from the career of my family, a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you could describe what sparked your curiosity?
Well, regarding languages, yeah. Uh, well, in fact, I am a patient guy. I have to say I'm very patient, and even from childhood. I used to help my father in his store and in his business since I was 7 years old. In fact, I have to say that, and this caused, this part of my life. This shaped my life, and to be a serious person. And because I didn't, in fact, I didn't enjoy most of the children at my age enjoyed before, and. Well, my father wanted me to be the best among the in the village, and he sent me first to a Roman Catholic school in Irbid. That was in 1970, and the story of my academic life, or my my school life started there. But due to the problems that occurred in Jordan at that time, well, my father preferred that I go back to the village and study there, and continued studying there, doing my my elementary, preparatory, and secondary schooling. I did it in the village, in fact, and even in a village nearby. And I used to walk from my house to that village for 3 kilometers sometimes, and maybe this. This walk, stimulated me to think about the world and about sometimes the creation, about a lot of things where, usually schoolboys think sometimes, some of them, they don't think about it because they have their other interests. In fact, even this influenced my life in my future life. I mean, at the university, even in Germany, and also later, I can see. Well, during the preparatory and elementary period phases, we used to study Arabic poetry, ancient Arabic poetry, and I was fascinated, in fact. With the contents of the Arabic poetry in general, and how they can be recited in a rhythmic style. But I was interested also to understand the words integrated, are used in such passages, poetical passages. And I can assure you that later I found out that our teachers sometimes they explained in a traditional way. They explained some words in a traditional way, but I was not convinced. I was not convinced mostly in their explanations, and I kept this until I went to the university in 1983, where I attended the Arabic program at Yarmouk University. And we went, in fact, with the assistance of professors of Arabic studies, we went in depth to study in studying the ancient Arabic poetry. But the problem, I didn't find a solution for my problem. I mean, how to understand the Arabic poetry in a proper way, and what are the origins of some certain words in this Arabic poetry, and also, to explain how linguistic phenomena could be, how could we explain certain linguistic phenomena in Arabic in particular, within this wide context. Within this wide Arabic context where Arabic is used. As you know, Arabic is used in different parts of the world. In fact, that was not enough for me, because I started to excavate and to dig for the origins of Arabic, and I found some of the answer during my MA studies. Where we exposed to, in fact, I have to say, European experience. I was taught by different European professors and American professors at the Institute of Archaeology and Anthropology at that time. We were exposed to and also, I mean, we attended courses to study, for example, Canaanite, ancient South Arabian, Old Ethiopic, Aramaic, etc. And they are more. All of these languages are sister languages, and go back to one source or to one origin, which we called Proto-Semitic. Now, this in fact paved the way for my future research, and since then I was interested in studying more and more ancient languages to understand Arabic and its context in a proper way. As I
and then what makes that now you unique in the world? It makes you unique.
Yes.
Why?
I'm afraid of this word, unique.
It does.
Yeah. I'm trying to connect and to find the relationship between Arabic and its cultural and linguistic context. This is what I'm trying to show to my, not only to my colleagues, also to my students, and also to make it known abroad. This methodology was not known, in fact, in the Arab world. I mean, how to connect Arabic with its surrounding languages through ages, and also the culture where Arabic emerged. Yeah. This influenced, of course, my future studies and future research. I did my MA thesis on the relationship between Arabic and Ugaritic, because Arabic is an important source, because it's a language which existed and continued to exist in Arabia and the Levant, also, and of course in North Africa.
One second, what do we hear?
We hear the adhan, adhan al-Asr.
And what is the adhan al-Asr?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, and we have Islamic prayers, 5 prayers. This is the we call it adhan al-Asr, which comes after afternoon.
You said at a certain moment when you were young, you listened to this Arabic poetry, and
read.
Sorry.
In fact, it was included in the curricula in the school. Yeah, and also I heard it. Some people improvised it. And I was interested in understanding the meaning of this poetry in a proper way. But usually people recite this poetry, but they sometimes don't understand the cultural backgrounds of this poetry. And I was interested in the cultural background, not only on the how to be recited. It's beautiful to hear it, but I was interested in understanding the cultural dimensions of this poetry and its language.
So you missed that in the recital.
Yes, this is what I missed, in fact, during my school period. Also, I can say even during my BA period and at the university, because they used to teach us in a traditional way, trying to explain. They couldn't, explain the cultural backgrounds of this poetry, and not only the cultural backgrounds, but also the contained lexical items that were for me very difficult to understand as a young guy, because the Arabian poetry represents, or the Arabic poetry represents, a very old stage of the Arabic literature, and it was. I can't say that it was disconnected from the people, but it represented a certain cultural phase in the Arabian Peninsula. And I was, in future stages of my life, I was interested in to understand in depth the cultural background and the cultural context of this poetry. and also the Quran, the beginning of Islam. I mean, the language of Quran was also for me a very difficult language to understand. I think we can shed some light on the Quranic text from different languages that existed in Arabia before Islam, because some words continued to be used. At that time, and also they were part of the Quranic text. And I was interested in understanding such words in Quran, and I have some research on this regard. I started a project on this regard. Yeah.
Can you to go back? Do you remember the poem, the first poem that makes you?
Well, there are, in fact, I'm interested in the pre-Islamic Arabian poetry, and which goes back to the so-called Jahiliyyah poetry, or the Jahiliyyah age, or the ignorance period. For example, the poems of Antara and Zuhair bin Abi Sulma and other.
Can you recite one?
Now not no. Well, and also Arwa ibn al-Ward and other people. But you know, I was not prepared to do this. You know, because a few.
Okay, then I'd like to go back to the last thing what you said about the Quranic. What did you? What are you doing with the? You say you're. You see that it also not is disconnected from the people, but it's somehow it's a language form that is not.
I mean the poetry was okay. It was definitely not connected. It emerged in in a cultural context, of course, because this poetry describes the people, describes their relationship with the environment. It describes also their understanding of the world. At that time.
No, but sorry, I mean, when we go back to the Quran, the Quranic, you were saying that you now, with what you are finding, you are finding new words also for the Quran, or you find new.
No, I'm not finding new words, but no, I mean, well, there are certain Quranic words that could be interpreted in a different way. I mean, okay, the Arab exegetes they contributed a lot to understanding the Quran, but in some cases we can do more to understand this text through the languages that existed in Arabia at that time. Yeah,
because they have all their roots.
Yes, of course. I mean, such words they have their roots in the languages of Arabia before Islam, and I mean, we have, for example, some words that were Arabized. They became Arabic. Although they are foreign words, but they became Arabic, and they became part of the Arabian linguistic culture. And you found them, in different pre-Islamic Arabian texts. And also they are known. Some of them are known in the Quranic text, because they are not, in fact, they were foreign words, but they were Arabized. They took the Arabic shape. As usual in the interchange between languages, it's known.
You are discovering that now.
Well, I'm trying to deal with certain words and understand them in a different lexical context.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, to interpret them in the light of ancient Semitic languages that existed in Arabia before Islam.
And how can you give examples?
Yes, there are some examples. I mean, for example, the verse "Inna sharahna laka sadrak," which has been interpreted, we opened your chest, and there are different interpretations. But if go back to, for example, to ancient South Arabian linguistic culture, we find that the root sharaha, it means to protect. Which means, in fact, if we reinterpret this, it means that the God has protected Muhammad's heart. This helps us to understand the text in a better way, and it's for the benefit of Quran. In fact, it's for the benefit of Quran. To use the ancient languages to shed light on Quran through other Arabian languages.
Okay, then we go back to when we were with your students. You were with your students in the mountains,
Yes.
looking at these stones and this enormous terrain. When you look for them at the and for yourself, when you envision your future, the ideal dream of what they can do, what you can do here in this area, how do you envision that over 10, 15 years?
Well, how do I envision my students or the field in general?
Stel vraag. I put the question wrong. Yeah. When you look in your field of work, yeah, with your students, you walk into boundaries. That's what you explained before. What do you envision for the coming 10 years? What do you want them to find out, and what is it that you yourself would want to find out?
Well, in fact, I would like to continue in this field, and of course, I hope that that my students can continue as well, because this is a message that we have to hand out to to future generations, and I hope that we can establish a kind of school. Academic school, to understand which aims at understanding our Arabian culture from in the Arabian Peninsula and also in the Levant. Yeah, that's what my aim, that they continue on the same discipline, and also that they continue and also in training future generations. Yeah.
And when you look, because you walk into limitations. You said you were the first one that shed a light in an era where much of the people here didn't see the light.
Yes.
What do you think that your students will? What kind of windows are they able to open?
Well, I hope they can. Of course, they can. I don't know. It's of course their decision. To follow my discipline or not. But definitely they are going to contribute in understanding the Arabian culture in its widest context. I like them to work on the history of Arabic. I would advise them to work intensively on the history of Arabic as a language and culture. For the future, I think they because they have now a wide knowledge. A wide knowledge in languages, modern languages, and also ancient languages, and they have also the capability. They are capable to deal with other cultures. Not ancient cultures, also modern cultures in the world. I think they have better opportunity than what I had before. Yeah.
And a lot of stones to.
Yes, okay. We have to continue. Documenting the inscriptions spread all over the Jordanian terrain, and this needs many generations. In the future to be prepared for this task. It's not a task of one generation or two generations. We have to train many generations so that they can continue documenting our cultural heritage. Not only stones and inscriptions, but also archaeology and tangible heritage and intangible heritage. I can't divide culture, into parts. They are all interconnected. There are a lot of aspects that are interconnected, and can by studying these aspects, we can draw a clear picture about our culture.
What are you doing now? What is your focus
Yes.
now?
Now I am involved in different projects and research endeavors in general. While I'm now conducting a field work, it's a long, it's a field work which I'm going to continue for the next few years in the so-called Harra region, in the volcanic region we visited. Because and I'm also trying to involve foreign institutions to work with me in this field work. And it is. We are trying to document as far as possible ancient North Arabian inscriptions from northern Jordan and from the so-called northeastern Badia. It has a lot of the surfaces of stones constituted an ideal canvas for writing inscriptions. Those inscriptions were written by people who were in the area. Maybe they had a Bedouin character, but it is not definite. And there is a countless number of inscriptions in this area, and they need to be documented for future studies so that we understand more and more about the people and the area and the history of the area.
But when we look around you, whole Jordan, it's all here. This was the land of milk and honey.
Yes.
It's one big archaeological black hole you still have to discover.
Yes, I'm not the only person, In fact, in my institute at the Yarmouk University and the other institute you saw today, you have found out that we are trying to train students and to train new generation to take the burden, to continue this responsibility in studying the cultural heritage of Jordan.
But it's so. What I want to say, all these rocks have a story.
Yes,
and
of course.
You are the one so far that found some of the stories. But this is one big landscape of rocks wanting to speak.
Yes, in fact, this is true. But
what is true? Sorry.
This is. Everywhere you find inscriptions, everywhere you find aspects of cultural heritage here in Jordan. And yes, I said we need generations and generations that continue to document and study this cultural heritage. It is an evidence that this area contributed in the human history. It is an evidence, what we see here is an evidence that this area, this region contributed to the human creativity. It's an evidence on human creativity. We are trying to widen this knowledge. To widen the spectrum of this knowledge, not only among the academics but also among the local community, so that they can feel that they have, old history and they are proud of.
So that they understand they have old history and that they're proud of it.
Yes, this is our intention. Not only studying the cultural heritage in academic way, but also to let people know, to let the community know that they have ancient history which contributed in the development of humanity as part of the development of civilizations. Yeah.
It's quite a struggle.
Yeah, I don't know, but this is something, it is, but this is evident, as you see,
For you it is evident. For you it's evident, but is it also for the people evident?
For the people, I don't think so. I don't think that all people in Jordan, it's evident for them that Petra, for example, that it contributed in the human development and the human civilizations. For my father, for example, he never visited Petra. He's from the local Jordanian community, but he didn't visit Petra before. And I'm speaking of myself. Yeah,
why not?
well, he's okay. I mean, 72 years old. He has his own interests. He's a businessman, and he's maybe not interested in this field. But I promised him to take him to Petra in maybe in 1-2 years. I'm trying to convince him. But my concern.
Is it difficult to convince him? You are the one that
Yes,
discovered his history.
This is the paradox, is because I am the one who should make him aware about our ancient heritage. But I am now concerned.
Please. So what you're saying is it is strange. Your father.
Yes.
You open the window, and your father has to be convinced to join you and look through the window.
Yes, through my window. Yeah. Yes, this is a kind of paradox. I can't explain that, but he didn't get the right education to be aware of the importance of our cultural heritage. But we are trying this with the young generation now. Yeah.
But when you look at this paradox, because your father stands for much more people than stands for the general opinion about it.
No, not necessarily general opinion. No, I mean in his age there are people who are interested who are interested in this heritage. And
is it sometimes, do you feel lonely? Is it sometimes difficult to know so much of those beautiful era, and that you see so many people that you're going to convince, or try to convince? Gives it also a lonely feeling that you are one of the few that understands it?
Yes, sometimes yes. Yeah, this is true. I feel myself sometimes alone, even among my colleagues, at the university.
How come? Why?
I mean, not in my faculty, but in general,
Yeah, but
because young generation now is interested in different things, in IT and business administration, finance, etc. And this field is not okay. It's respected in Jordan, but students mostly are interested, or young generation is interested in majors through which they can earn money, And I have to admit, through archaeology and heritage, this is sometimes difficult, Yeah.
So that makes you lonely.
Well, yeah, maybe yes, yeah, maybe, but I have some colleagues here in Jordan with whom I can communicate and exchange ideas, and I have also colleagues from Europe and the States and the United States, and we exchange ideas and opinions. But mostly we remain in the academic realm. That's the problem, and the challenge now, how to raise awareness about the importance. I mean, how to raise awareness among the community members about this important cultural heritage, which should be disseminated, and get known to a wide range of people. Mm-hmm. This is a challenge. I mean, I'm okay as an academic. I do my part, but there are other parties that can work with us. For example, the media now. Media can reach everybody in his room. And I think we have to work on this now in the next stage.
Yeah. And then you start with the rest of the history of Jordan, because this also has to be discovered, or has to be
it has to be studied, discovered, explored. But I'm just one person, and that's why I said we have to build a generation to get involved in studying this culture.
Yeah. What is your what is your dream when you think in 10, 15 years? What's your ideal Jordan look like?
Jordan,
as in your
in my field.
In my field, your field.
Yes, I expect or I hope and wish that we are going to to establish an academic school here in Jordan. Academic school, not in terms of university or in the way of thinking, in this field, and I think I am part of this generation now because I was trained in Jordan. I mean, for my BA and MA, and I am very proud that to get my first training in Jordan, and it was consolidated by my study in Germany and my academic stays in Europe and in the United States. And I'm sure that we are going further and try with the future generation, of course, to build this academic school, this academic school of thought in the field of cultural heritage in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when you look at the field where you're now researching, where we were before,
Yeah.
Is it like that's quite a lot of work also? All those stones. Are all those stones already?
Yeah, not all of the stones. As we have seen yesterday, we had to penetrate in the desert for 40 kilometers to find the place, to find the site where we walked before. Yes, I mean, there is a countless number of such inscriptions spread over the stones of the desert right there in the north, I mean, in northeastern Badia. And yeah, of course, they need expertise, they need scholars, they need more trained students, and also research institutions. I suggested once a day that to establish, a kind of research center there, in the desert, so that such inscriptions, such archaeology, such sites can be easily accessible to us. Yeah, I mean, this is one of my dreams, to establish a research center there.
Mm-hmm. And where do they publish their findings?
Well, usually we have either we publish the findings in books or we publish them in journals in different languages, Arabic, German, English. Yeah, I mean, those languages are accessible for us, and sometimes in French. Because some of my colleagues graduated from France and England, for example, and they prefer to write in the languages they master.
And here in Jordan?
Yes, of course we have. In fact, the academic situation and the level of education in Jordan is good here, and it has a high standard in comparison to other institutions in the region.
But can you, for example, also the stories that shed light on this era, pre-Islamic era, is it easy to share it with the general public? Is it allowed?
Yeah, of course, yes. Yeah. This is, I mean, we can share it with the public. I mean, we hold conferences about our new discoveries. I mean, in few, I think we are planning for a workshop, I think in March 2016, on this subject about new discoveries in Jordan, new epigraphical discoveries in Jordan. Yes, I mean, there is no problem to share the information with the public, because I mean, sometimes we compose our articles and research papers in Arabic, and I mean, Arabic is accessible for everybody in Jordan.
No, but you can imagine what I'm also meaning is it is sometimes, I suppose, difficult when you have a lot of people who think of the time before as ignorant, as an ignorant time, to let them know, look through this window, you see a different world.
Yes, yeah.
Like what you're saying about what you're doing with the vocabulary.
Okay. Yeah, this is true. In fact, the best way is to use the modern media possibilities to make the people aware about what they are discovering. And I'm trying my best now to convince my university to integrate this discipline, this academic discipline, into different academic fields. Not only in archaeology, in the archaeological context, but also in the maybe in the Department of Arabic Studies. Because the Department of Arabic Studies and the departments of Arabic Studies in the Arab world, they are in fact not totally concerned with the ancient sources that we encounter in Arabia before Islam.
What is the essence of what they are finding and what you are finding?
Yes, in fact, it's very essential to understand, cultural historical aspects on the basis of inscriptions. For example, we know that Arabia has had always a constant contact with the surrounding. That we discovered through the inscriptions, through the texts. And we know that, for example, that Arabia had contacts with Egypt, with Greece, with Asia, with Asia, modern Turkey, and with Asia Minor, and also with other remote areas. For example, the Semites, they reached Morocco, and they reached Tunisia and Morocco, and through the inscriptions we can find out how the Semitic people in this area were in a strong and constant contact with other people in the world.
But why is it you find all these findings and this very important information, but we look around in a part of the world where all kind of conflicts emerge now around Jordan, which is all about historical misconceptions also. You have Daesh, you have all kind of you have countries that say you have to believe this and you do it like that. You have groups that say it's like this and you should do it. How is that? I can imagine that is a lonely feeling when in this part of the world where they treat history.
Yes, in fact, that's why we have to understand history in the proper way. We don't have to politicize history. This is the most dangerous thing, and every group tries to say that I am the one who follows the right way. But this is not true. We have basic ground which we have to understand it as it is. We don't have to reflect our political backgrounds or on the culture. If we politicize, I don't know whether I am using the right word. If we understand culture and religion as well in the political context, definitely the result will be dangerous. Yeah.
You see that?
Yes. In fact, that's what's happening now. In fact, in the surrounding region. It's difficult. Every group has its own understanding, and they defend that in different ways because of the lack of cultural dialogue. And I am dreaming of.
So could you explain to me what it means, what you are doing, and what people in your work field are doing for the enhancement of identity and the enrichment of identity?
Yes, in fact, maybe as you have seen that I am working on in different fields, but they are interrelated. I'm using the information contained in the inscriptions in order to reach a certain result, And I'm using also information gained from cultural heritage in general, especially the intangible cultural heritage, to put these results together in order to show how cultural heritage in general is important for identity. In fact, identity is not contained only in inscriptions but also in other sources. I mean, for example, the Arabian poetry is part of our history, is part of our identity, or the Arabic poetry. And also the holy book Quran is also part of our identity because it's written in Arabic. And I think it's very crucial and important to understand what the others wrote about Quran. And there are several institutions in Europe and in the United States that take care, that study in Quran in a different, from a different perspective and in a different methodology. A lot of studies appeared in the last 20 years about Quran from Germany, France, and other countries in the world. But I have the problem, I think I would suggest the academic institutions in the Arab world to start understanding what the Europeans wrote about this book, about this holy book, in fact, and so that we can understand from the methodological level how the European scholars study Quran. Because studying the Quran traditionally, without taking into consideration the new publications written in different languages, for example, in German, French, or Russian, I don't know, I think it would lead to a kind of it could lead to a kind of misunderstanding of the others and their work concerning Quran. And because it's for me important to show how Europeans dealt with the Quran in general, especially in the last 20, 30 years ago. All the literature about the Quran mostly translated into Arabic, and we knew the contents of it. But in the last 20, 30 years, we have, Arab scholars who has no access to foreign languages. This will remain for them closed. This literature written in other languages remains for them closed. They don't know a lot about it. That's why I suggest that we start translating this into Arabic. Yeah.
But that's the core of who you are. Languages are the key.
Yes, are the key of cultures. Yeah.
And also to understand identity, your own identity.
Yes, of course. Studying ancient written sources that are written in Arabian languages, and studying also their cultural connotations, in addition to their cultural backgrounds, and this would shed the light on the people who wrote these texts, and also make them feel proud about our identity.
And understanding the identity.
Yeah, and to understand it in a proper way.
Yeah. So for that reason, the languages, the understanding of languages form the basis for.
Yes, of course. The languages are the keys. Are the keys to cultures, and cultures. Cultural values are contained in cultures. Studying the languages is, of course, the key to understand the cultural backgrounds. Especially in regarding ancient civilizations, because they are, they don't exist anymore. But we have the texts that have been left by those who composed them. We can get some glimpses about the cultural background from these texts, and they would help us in enhancing the identity.
And that's why your work is so important.
Thank you very much.
No, don't you think yourself that
Yeah,
it's
of
important?
course. I think it's an important discipline which should be, which should be supported. In every Jordanian institution, academic institution.
And with by every Jordanian.
Yes, of course. First of all, we have to start in the academic institutions, and then we should think in a further step how to disseminate this knowledge among the local communities.
Yeah. So that also the people that visit Petra, for example, understand what Petra is, and that's
Yes,
not like
of course.
because now it is sometimes used as a kind of another.
Well, this is a difficult story to tell, because now Petra is being consumed if we remain investing it in this way. I feel that Petra is part of our identity here in Jordan, and we have to preserve it and safeguard it as a cultural space, and for the future generations. Because it is, a site like Petra is a place which is unparalleled. In the world, and we are very proud to have it. But we have, in the same time, to do our best to safeguard it, and also to present it in a proper way. And in addition to its being as an part of our identity in Jordan, I think it's also a source for income generation for the national income. We can do. We have the ability here in Jordan to start working on the site in a proper way to conserve it and to safeguard it for future generations. This is also can be applied to other sites in Jordan. As you mentioned before, Jordan is a museum. It's an open museum. If you travel from the north to the south, you will always encounter cultural heritage sites or natural sites, and they constitute, of course, part of our local identity.
But they only have to see it.
Yes, this is an important thing as well. We have to make the people aware of the importance of such archaeological sites or heritage sites in general. Yeah.
Because by understanding it, they understand their own identity.
Yeah, definitely.
And that they understand they are more than just an Islamic, or just they are more. There is more than the Islamic history.
Yes, in fact, I feel that this part is not.
Okay.
Yeah, Islam is also as part of our history, part of our identity as well. If you want to, I don't know. Do you want me to say it again?
You can say it again. You can say it again where you like.
Yes, in fact, it's not only the cultural heritage is part of our identity, and the religious identity of the people who are living in Jordan is part of the entire identity of the Jordanian community. We have Muslims, we have Christians here in Jordan, but they constitute both religions here in Jordan are part of our identity as Jordanians in a whole.
And as Arabs in a whole.
Yeah, as Arabs, of course, yes.
Yeah. So a lot of work to do for you.
Yes, in fact, I am an individual, but I'm trying my best, and as I mentioned, I hope that we can cooperate. Cooperate with the young generation to, at the end, to have a group of researchers, a group of interested people, not only from the academic institutions but also from the local communities, to work together and to cooperate so that we can enhance our identity and as Jordanians, as Muslims, Christians, and as Arabs.